let's start with the Yankees, and I'll turn to you, Ryan. This was a really weird week for them.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to cue this up. It actually was a really good week, which makes it even more frustrating with the end because we'll get into it now. My mental state yesterday was really bad. I had to put the phone down for a long amount of time, had to go on a walk, had to clear my head. You're 3 outs away from sweeping the Houston Astros, going into the break, winning 6 of 7. Things were really looking up. Like, I know we've said that a lot this year, Dylan, but this was really a moment where you could look at, okay, they have an identity now. This jacket thing that I'm sure we'll get into in a minute. They've been going back and forth all series. The pitching had dominated an Astros lineup that was first in average, first in OPS, first in on base. This was a really good Astros team. They take the first two, but then game three, 7-2 going into the ninth. And you had a slight feeling just because the Yankees have had some collapses this year, right? We know the Angels game. We know some other games throughout, and the story has been the same where they get out to a big lead and they don't continue to add on. And so when you do that, when you go 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position, when you have 13 walks, when you leave 14 on base, you keep the door open for the best offense in baseball. And that's exactly what happened. And the bullpen, Herman was going out there, gave up a few unlucky infield single, then off the wall. And you go to Chad Green in that spot because, frankly, right now there's no one else to turn to. Jonathan Loáisiga put on the COVID list before this series. Huge loss. Like, really, he would come in this situation. We'd probably have a way better tone. You probably wouldn't say it was a weird week if he was in this game. And so Chad Green comes in, didn't have it at all. They blow a 7-2 lead to the Houston Astros. Jose Altuve hits the home run. It's the true nightmare doomsday scenario for the Yankees. There's no team you'd rather not do this year. There's no player you'd rather not have the moment than Altuve. And that on top of it makes it sting, I think, more than it really should. Because if you take a day, which I needed this day, I'll tell you. If we had to do this yesterday, it wouldn't have been pretty. reflecting on the trip a day later with the emotions kind of in check, taking 2 of 3 from the Houston Astros team, taking 2 of 3 from the Mariners, winning 4 of 6 on this West Coast trip, it was good. And so, you look at some individual things, some players we'll get into and stuff, but overall, weird, good way to put it, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching last game, like truly, truly testing the limits of humanity, at least for me. And, I guess you take 2 of 3 from the Astros, though. You really do. They're a really good team. They're going to be there at the end of the day, and you still go into the break with some confidence. And I think that's what the Yankees need coming up.
Yeah, and Ryan, I think you mentioned how the lineup kind of fell apart after the early in that game, but I mean, 7 runs should still win you a baseball game, and I you definitely agree with me. But the bullpen's got to do their job, and the Yankees are responsible for 3 games really where they blew it late in the game. You think about the Angels game, you think about the Mets, and then you think about this game. And Buster Olney tweeted this out. We were talking about this before the show, how there's 495 of games this year where a team's led by 4+ runs entering the 9th inning. And 2 of those across the entire MLB, the team lost that was leading by 4+ runs. And the Yankees are responsible for both losses. So that's a crazy stat in my opinion. And it just shows you the inconsistency of this bullpen. And that really showed in that Astros loss the other night.
It really is strange because, I think overall, the point here is overall, this was a successful road trip. This was especially for the situation the Yankees found themselves in coming into this week, losing 2 of 3 to a Mets team in which they could have easily taken 2 of 3 of that series, or maybe even swept that series if things go right for them. And then have to play 6 games on the road against 6 teams, against 2 teams that are quite good at this point. To take 2 or 3 from the Mariners and to take 2 or 3 from the Astros, that's a success. Now, I've been saying this with the Yankees all year. I said it to Ryan the other day on one-on-one, but emotionally, what a difference a day makes. The difference in your projection of the Yankees between, excuse my dog in the background, but the projection of the way we feel about the Yankees from the end of Saturday's game to the end of Sunday's game went from the Yankees are back to the season's over. And it's been happening constantly every night of the week.
I've never seen anything like it.
For like 10, 11 weeks now. It's kind of crazy. We also should mention what an incredible performance Garrett Cole put on Saturday night. What was it, 129 pitches or 126?
129.
129 going the distance against the Houston Astros. The only pitcher in Major League Baseball this year to throw 120 plus pitches in a game. Crazy outing. But the point being, the Yankees, for most of this road trip, and my dog has to shut up, but I'll take care of that later. For the most part, the Yankees in this series did everything right, with the exception of a handful of innings.
Yeah. That's why I'm not ready to kill the bullpen, because this team would be completely out of it without the bullpen. They've carried them all year. And you even look at game one of this series, it was a bullpen game. You have Nestor Cortez, you have Lucas Luque, you have Green and Loaizaga. And those are guys, if you went into this year telling me those are the four names that are going to shut out the best offense in baseball, I'd say you're crazy. And so Nestor Cortez, too, to your point, he's really been kind of a guy that's emerged recently. 3 really good outings in a row, 1.05 ERA so far this year. So if you're able to find a guy like that, and he'll have to get stretched out, he went 4 2/3 game one of the series, that's a huge weapon for you. Jameson Taillon had a second straight really good start following the first game of the Mariners series, 7 innings, 1 run, and then he goes 6-2 against this Astros team. There's confidence there. You talked about Garrett Cole, and I think I tweeted this. I don't know. I said I really think that performance was more impressive than any of the no-hitters this year.
Yeah,
I really do. If you look at the whole context of the situation, first of all, no one was available in the pen for the Yankees. Literally, Chad Green pitched 2 innings the night before. Loaizaga got COVID. No one you rely on. You get 1 run of run support. You're coming off 2 straight bad outings. The doubts, he talked about there were never doubts. He had a great post-game comment where Marley Rivera asked him, does this prove the doubters wrong? He said, look at my stats, look at my numbers. And so he really did just that. He gave the Yankees everything they could have asked for. He's 129 pitches. You don't see that in 2021 baseball. It really reaffirmed all the confidence that you did have in him. And so, I was never worried about the sticky stuff, all that. I don't think you were either, Dylan. We've talked about it. He'll get back on track. He's too good of a pitcher. He did just that. And so I think when you look at it like that, you take positives of the series. It's just, how many games can they have like this? How many worse losses of the season can they have? Mike mentioned that stat. And there are other games too, down to their last strike versus the Tigers, one inning away from sweeping the Twins. It's just in an instant. And the Astros thing, very similar. It was snap of your fingers, the game was over, and you were up 5 runs 7 minutes before. And so it's just frustrating on that, because the thing that I don't want to happen with the Yankees, and I pray this doesn't, is you look at the end of the season and you can pinpoint this game, Angels game, whatever, as the reason they didn't make the playoffs. Obviously a full body of work, 162 games, the results will speak for themselves, which is why I love baseball, because you're able to lose games like this and be fine, in the grand scheme of things. But they have to play catch up right now. That's the thing. If this team was as good as we thought they'd be through this point, yes, this would be an awful loss. You can never excuse a loss like this, but you would be able to kind of sit back a little bit and be okay, we won 4 of 6 from the Astros this year. We're going into the break fine. You could lose games like this if you weren't already digging yourselves a hole. And they're 4.5 back of the wild card. So they're not out of it by any means with 70-plus games. Division's another story, but at the end of the day, they still control their own destiny with a ton of games versus the Red Sox. I think they have 11 more. So, it sucks because you can't say the season's over. And why that sucks is the gymnastics that I have to do in my head is you could lose a game like that, and then you still can look at it objectively and be okay, this team, they can do this. There's so much time left, and they have the pieces to do it. So I think when you look at it like that, it drives you crazy. It's why we've said, as you just said, Dylan, 7 different times, they are back. And then you say the season's over an inning later. And so it really is a whirlwind. I think Lindsay Adler tweeted, I thought it was a good tweet. What is the script that the Yankees team is writing? You can't figure it out. Whenever it looks like they're going in one direction, instantly going in the other. And that's happened too many times this year. And the inconsistencies have shown, and when you're inconsistent, you lose games like this. So it's a really weird series. I know we keep getting back to that. You have to look at it with a positive light, but the reactionary fan in me, and just to lose a game like that, it sucks. And it does a little bit wipe out everything they've worked on the last week.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one of the biggest thing with the Yankees now is that when you get the Red Sox, especially coming up this weekend, these are series you're going to have to capitalize on, the divisional opponents. And these are the series you've struggled with throughout the year. The Rays are up and down when you play them. You haven't been the Red Sox yet. So if you want to make a chance or you want to make a run for this wild card, it's nice when you win the series against the Mariners. It's nice when you beat the Astros in the series 2 out of 3, but you're going to have to beat your divisional opponents. And that's what it's going to take for the Yankees to really flip this script. And it's going to take the whole team coming together and being consistently together to win this game. When the lineup's on, the pitching's not on, and then vice versa. So that's really been the story. And I think we're going to learn a lot when we get on the other side of this All-Star break and see this series against the Red Sox.